There is a belief that almost every trader with a $100 account carries, and it is the belief that causes more damage than any bad trade ever could. The belief is this: once I have more money, I will trade better. Once the account is bigger, the pressure will be less and the decisions will be cleaner and the rules will be easier to follow. The size is the problem. The size is what needs to change. Mark Douglas spent the better part of 3 decades watching that belief destroy accounts at every level, from traders working with $100 to traders managing hundreds of thousands, and his conclusion was the same every time. The size is never the problem. The problem is what the trader brings to the size they have, and until that changes, no amount of capital solves anything. It just makes the same mistakes more expensive. This video is the playbook he assembled from that work, not a summary, not a highlight reel. Everything he understood about what it takes to grow a small account, the actual mental framework, the specific principles, the mechanisms that determine whether $100 becomes a foundation or a casualty. If you are trading at that scale right now, this is the material that was built for exactly where you are. The first thing to understand is what a $100 account actually is in terms of trading psychology. Most people treat it as a limitation, a starting point they need to escape as quickly as possible. Mark Douglas saw it as something entirely different. He saw it as the most precise psychological testing environment available to any trader at any stage of their development. Here's why. At $100, nothing is abstract. Risk is not a percentage on a spreadsheet. It is $5 you can feel, $10 you can feel, $20 that genuinely matters. The emotional responses that most traders spend years trying to understand, the fear, the hesitation, the urgency, they are present on every single trade. Not in theory, in your body, in your breathing, in the way your hand moves toward the mouse when a position starts going against you. All of it is available for observation at maximum intensity. And observation is how this gets fixed. Douglas wrote extensively about self-observation as the core skill of trading development, not chart observation, self-observation. The ability to watch your own internal state during a trade with the same calm, analytical attention you would bring to reading price action. That skill, that specific ability to be inside the experience and watching it at the same time, is what separates the trader who keeps making the same mistakes from the trader who stops making them. And it can only be built in conditions where the emotional responses are real. $100 provides those conditions at a scale where the mistakes are survivable. That is not a limitation. That is the entire point. The playbook begins here. Chapter 1 is what Douglas called the foundation of every correct trading decision, understanding what kind of game you are actually playing. Most traders, especially at the small account stage, believe they are playing a prediction game. The job is to predict where price is going. A good trader is someone whose predictions are correct more often than they are wrong. A bad trader is someone whose predictions fail. Everything flows from that assumption. The strategy, the analysis, the hours spent studying charts, the constant search for a better system that is more accurate more often. Mark Douglas said that framing is the root of most trading failure, and he was specific about why. Prediction is a binary game. Each trade is either right or wrong. And the moment you are inside a game of right and wrong, your entire psychology shifts. Being wrong becomes threatening to something beyond your account balance. It becomes threatening to your sense of competence, your judgment, your identity as someone who understands the market. And from that threatened state, you make the decisions that are not in your plan. The moved stop loss, the early exit, the oversized revenge trade, because you are no longer managing a position, you are managing an ego under attack. The game Douglas described is a probability game, and the difference is not semantic. A probability game means that each individual trade is simply one instance in a series. Your edge, the statistical advantage that your strategy carries when applied consistently, does not express itself in any single trade. It expresses itself across a large enough sample of trades. 50 trades, 100 trades, 300 trades. You can lose 4 in a row with a valid edge. You can lose 6 in a row, and none of those losses means anything about your edge, your strategy, or your competence, as long as your risk management held and your execution followed the plan. because the edge is not located in any individual outcome. It lives in the aggregate. Ed Seykota started his professional trading career managing a small amount of capital for a client in the early 1970s. He turned $10,000 into $2.5 million over the following decade. What Seykota consistently said about his approach was not about which markets he traded or which signals he followed. It was about the relationship between his mind and the uncertainty in the market. He said that the elements of good trading were cutting losses, riding winners, and managing risk, and that all three were expressions of a single underlying reality, that you cannot know what any individual trade will do. You can only know that your system has an edge over time, and the only way to collect on that edge is to be there, in the market with appropriate risk, trade after trade after trade, long enough for the probability to resolve in your favor. Douglas took that principle and went inside it more deeply than almost anyone else who taught trading psychology. He pointed out that most traders accept this idea in theory and then immediately contradict it in practice, because the theory lives in their conscious mind and the contradiction lives in their nervous system. When you sit down at the platform and you have real money in a position and the candle is moving the wrong direction, theoretical acceptance of uncertainty does not help you. What helps is having trained the nervous system through deliberate, consistent, low-pressure repetition to not treat a trade's uncertain outcome as a personal emergency. That training is the work, and it is work that must be done at real stakes, not on paper, not in simulation, but on a live account where the money is real and the emotional responses are genuine. That is the first chapter of the playbook. You are not trying to be right, you are trying to be consistent. Consistent risk, consistent execution, consistent process. Over time, consistency with a valid edge produces results. Inconsistency destroys accounts regardless of the edge. This sounds straightforward. It is the single most difficult thing in trading to actually execute, and the reason it is difficult is everything that follows. Before I continue, if you are watching this and you have not subscribed yet, take 5 seconds right now and do that. This channel exists specifically for traders at the small account stage. The mental framework, the playbook principles, everything here is built for exactly where you are. Subscribe, then drop your answer in the comments. What account size are you working with right now? 100, 200, 500? Something smaller? Write it below. I read every single one. Chapter 2 of the playbook is the one Douglas returned to more often than any other. He called it thinking in probabilities. And the reason he returned to it so often is that most traders believe they have internalized it when they have not. They understand it intellectually, they can explain it to someone else, but when real money is at risk and a position is moving against them, the theoretical acceptance of uncertainty does not help you. What helps is having trained the nervous system through deliberate, consistent, low-pressure repetition to not treat a trade's uncertain outcome as a personal emergency. That training is the work. And it is work that must be done at real stakes, not on paper, not in simulation, but on a live account where the money is real and the emotional responses are genuine. The survival instinct, the mechanism that kept the human nervous system alive for hundreds of thousands of years by treating any threat to resources as a genuine emergency. The mechanism that, when activated by a losing trade, does not distinguish between a $10 loss and a predator in the brush. The response is the same. The urgency is the same. The narrowing of focus, the elevated heart rate, the compulsion to act, to do something, anything to stop the threat from developing further. And acting on that impulse, in trading terms, means doing the things that destroy accounts. You were in a trade. You defined your risk at entry. The position is moving toward your stop, and the survival response activates. It does not say, my stop is at the right place according to my analysis, and if price reaches it, the trade has failed and I should take the loss cleanly and move to the next opportunity. It says, this is not acceptable, something must be done, and the most immediate available action is to move the stop further away, to buy more time, to create more room, to avoid the loss for a little longer, and so you move it. Not because the analysis changed, because the feeling was stronger than the plan. At a $100 account, a moved stop does not sound catastrophic in dollar terms. Moving your stop adds $7 to the loss instead of $5. But that is not the real cost. The real cost is the precedent you just set. You demonstrated to yourself that the line you drew on the chart, the definition of when the trade has failed, is negotiable when the feeling is strong enough. And once that precedent exists, the next stop is easier to move, and the one after that, until the stop is not a risk management tool at all. It is a suggestion you override whenever the discomfort reaches a certain level. And accounts built on suggestions do not survive very long. Douglas was precise about this. He said that the stop loss is not placed to limit loss. It is placed to define the exact conditions under which you accept that the trade did not work and exit cleanly, without argument, without renegotiation. It is a commitment made in a calm state before the market opened and before any money was at risk, to honor the analysis when the emotion arrives to challenge it. Moving the stop is not a trading decision. It is a capitulation to the feeling at the expense of the plan. The second mechanism in this chapter is what happens when the trade is working. You placed it correctly. The position is in profit. The target is still some distance away. And the urgency to lock in what you have before it disappears, before the market takes it back, begins building from the moment the position goes green. This is the same survival mechanism expressing itself in the opposite direction. The threat is no longer the loss developing. The threat is the gain evaporating. And the response is the same compulsion to act. Take the profit now, make it real, remove the uncertainty. Cutting a winner early costs more over time than most traders realize, because the effect is invisible on any individual trade. You made money, the trade worked, you were ahead. But what you're actually doing across dozens of these early exits is collapsing your reward side while your risk side stays exactly the same. If you plan every trade for a 2-to-1 reward-to-risk ratio, and you consistently exit at 1-to-1 because the urgency to take profit overrides the plan, your actual expectancy is half of what your system is built for. You can win 60% of your trades and still lose money. And the reason will not be visible in any individual trade. It will live in the aggregate, in the gap between what your system produces and what your emotional responses allow you to collect. The third mechanism is hesitation at valid entries. You have a setup, every criterion is met, the window is open, and something makes you wait for one more candle, for one more confirmation, for something that removes the uncertainty from a decision that is inherently uncertain. The uncertainty never resolves. It cannot. The market does not offer entries without risk. And while you wait for something that isn't coming, the trade sets up, begins, and moves without you. Then you do what hesitating traders do everywhere. You chase the entry at a worse price, with a wider stop, with a worse risk-reward ratio, because you cannot tolerate watching the move happen without you in it. Douglas called hesitation at a valid entry one of the most misunderstood mistakes in trading, because it feels like caution. It presents itself as responsible behavior, taking time, making sure. But it is not caution. Caution means the setup does not qualify according to your criteria, so you don't trade. Hesitation means the setup fully qualifies and you still don't trade, because the certainty you need is not available in any market ever. And waiting for it is a way of avoiding a decision that has already been made by your own analysis. He made one additional observation about hesitation that applies particularly to the small account trader. He said that when hesitation becomes a pattern, when the trader consistently waits for conditions that never fully arrive, it's usually not uncertainty about the setup, it's fear of what a loss will mean. At $100 or $200, every loss represents a meaningful percentage of the entire account, and that weight makes entries feel heavier than the analysis warrants. The solution is not more analysis, it is right-sized risk. When the dollar amount on the line is genuinely survivable, the entry becomes just another execution. When it is too large relative to the account, every entry carries the weight of something that matters too much to get wrong, and you cannot execute freely from that place. The fourth mechanism is revenge trading. You lose a trade. You feel it, not just in the numbers, but in the body, in the ego, in the sense of yourself as someone who understands what the market is doing. And before the rational mind has fully processed what happened, the emotional mind is already building the next trade, larger, faster, more urgent, because the money needs to come back, and it needs to come back immediately. Douglas was precise. A trader in a revenge state is not making a trading decision at all. They are making an emotional statement. The trade is not about the setup. It is about the feeling they cannot tolerate sitting with. And the market does not respond to need. It only responds to probability, which is not changed at all because of what just happened in your account. If you're still watching, you already understand something that most traders never quite reach. Trading is a mental game that happens to take place on charts. Subscribe right now if you haven't already, and turn on the bell so you never miss a video. This content is built for the trader who is serious about changing how they approach the market, not just what they trade. Leave a like as well. It takes 1 second and it helps reach more traders who need this. Now tell me, what time is it where you are right now? Drop your city or your country in the comments. We have traders watching from every part of the world, and every time I see a new location come through, it reminds me why this channel matters. Chapter 3 of the playbook is the solution architecture, the specific conditions that make correct execution the natural behavior rather than an act of willpower. The first principle Douglas taught in this chapter is position sizing as a psychological instrument, not just a risk management tool. A psychological instrument. When the size of your risk on any individual trade is genuinely below the threshold that activates your survival response, every aspect of the trading experience changes. The stop loss becomes easy to respect because the loss it represents does not feel dangerous. The winner becomes easier to hold because you are not protecting a number that feels essential to your well-being. The hesitation dissolves because entering the trade does not feel like a threat that requires extra evaluation. At $100, that threshold is low in absolute terms. Risking 1 to 2% per trade, $1 to $2, sounds almost pointless, but that is precisely the point. At that risk level, the trade is not emotionally threatening. You can observe it clearly. You can execute the plan without the survival response competing with your rules. You can hold the winner to its target because $2 of open profit does not feel like something you must protect immediately. And in that environment, in that low-pressure, correctly sized environment, you begin building the behavioral patterns that define a competent trader. The habits you build at this scale are not temporary scaffolding you discard when the account grows. They are the permanent architecture. The ability to respect a stop, to hold a winner, to execute without hesitation, these do not upgrade automatically when your capital doubles or triples. They grow from the repeated experience of executing correctly at whatever scale you are currently operating. Every trade you take at correct sizing, every time you follow the plan when the feeling argues against it, is one more instance of the correct pattern installed in your trading behavior. And that installation is what eventually allows a larger account to be handled well. The second principle is the pre-trade process, deciding everything before the market opens and before any money is at risk. Douglas was direct about this. The decisions made in a calm, pre-market state with no open positions are your best decisions. They are made with full access to your analysis, your rules, your risk tolerance. Nothing is activated. Nothing is competing for your attention. You can think clearly. Every decision made after the market opens, while a position is running and the chart is moving, is made under some degree of emotional pressure. And emotional pressure degrades the quality of decisions in proportion to how much of it is present. Pre-trade preparation means writing down your entry criteria, your exact risk amount, your stop location, your target, your exit rules, made specific, made concrete, so that during the trading session, the only question is whether what you see on the chart matches what you wrote down before the session started. If it matches, you take the trade. If it does not, you do not. The discretion is removed from the emotional moment. It lives instead in the rational, calm, pre-market process where it belongs. The third principle addresses what happens after the trade is placed. Douglas recommended removing yourself from the chart, not ignoring the trade, managing it according to the rules you built in your pre-trade process, but not watching every candle, not refreshing the position every 2 minutes, not living inside every tick of price movement for the duration of the trade. Constant monitoring amplifies the emotional experience of holding a position. Every time you look at a live chart while in a trade, you expose yourself to short-term noise that activates the same mechanisms the pre-trade process was designed to prevent. Set the stop, set the target, define the conditions under which you will make any adjustments. Then step away and let the trade do what you planned for it to do. The trade does not improve because you watch it more closely. The market does not respond to how much attention you give it. The only variable that changes when you monitor obsessively is your internal state. And your internal state, when compromised by anxious attention, produces the decisions that override plans. The fourth principle in this chapter is the journal, not as a performance review, as a mechanism record. After each trading session, not just the bad ones, Douglas recommended writing down what happened internally during every trade, what you felt at entry, what you felt when the position moved against you, what you felt when it moved in your favor, the thoughts that arose during the trade, the impulses you acted on and the ones you did not. This is the self-observation practice he considered foundational to all trading development, because the patterns that are costing you money are not visible on the chart. They are inside the experience of trading, and the only way to see them clearly is to capture them in writing while the experience is still fresh. I have to stop here and ask you directly. Have you ever sat in front of your platform completely clear about what your setup required, completely clear about what you were supposed to do, and then watched yourself do something entirely different? Not because you forgot the rules, because something took over and the rules stopped feeling relevant in the moment. Write what happened in the comments below. I want to hear your story. Every comment gets read. Chapter 4 of the playbook is about time. Specifically about what becomes available when the first 3 chapters are applied with consistency over months and years. And here is where Douglas made a point that most small account traders completely miss. Most traders with small accounts are oriented to the near term. The goal is to grow the account quickly. The measure of whether trading is working is how the balance looks this week. This orientation is understandable. When you're working with $100 or $200, the compounding math of slow, steady growth feels irrelevant. You want the account to reach a level that feels real, and you want it to happen before you run out of patience. Douglas understood this impulse, and he said clearly and directly that it is the impulse most responsible for destroying the accounts it is trying to grow. The reason is structural. When the goal is growth this week, the position sizes required to produce visible results are too large relative to the account. Too large means too emotionally threatening. Too emotionally threatening means the survival response is active on every trade. And with the survival response active, all 4 mechanisms from Chapter 2, the moved stop, the early exit, the hesitation, the revenge trade, become almost inevitable. The trader is not making decisions, the trader is reacting, and reactive decisions taken under emotional pressure in a volatile environment do not produce consistent results, at any account size. The turtle trader's experiment is one of the most instructive stories in trading history. In the early 1980s, Richard Dennis and William Eckhart settled a disagreement about whether trading skill could be taught by selecting 23 people with no professional trading background and training them using a specific systematic approach. Most of the original turtles went on to generate extraordinary returns over the following years, returns that made the experiment famous. But the detail that matters most for this conversation is not the system they were taught. The system was not complicated. The detail that matters is what Dennis discovered about the difference between the turtles who consistently applied the system and the ones who deviated from it. The system had drawdown periods. There were stretches, sometimes weeks, sometimes longer, where the trades lost more than they won. The turtles who survived those periods and came out profitable on the other side were the ones who held to the process regardless of the emotional pressure the drawdown created. They did not change the system because it was not working temporarily. They executed it because they understood that the edge was expressed across many trades over time, not in any individual trade or any individual week. The turtles who underperformed deviated under pressure, sized up when they felt confident, sized down when they felt afraid, skipped trades because they felt wrong. The system was identical. The mental execution was not. For the trader with a $100 account, this story is directly relevant. You will have losing periods, not as a possibility, as a certainty. Any trading approach with a genuine edge experiences drawdowns. The edge does not operate continuously. It operates in aggregate over time, across enough trades that the statistical advantage accumulates into a meaningful result. During the losing periods, the pressure to change something, the strategy, the time frame, the market, the approach, is enormous. It feels like evidence that something is broken. Douglas was clear, it is not evidence of anything except that variance is real and that the edge has not yet expressed itself in this particular sample. The correct response is not to change. The correct response is to verify that your execution remained clean, confirm that your risk remained consistent, and continue. Capital preservation during the losing periods is what makes the winning periods matter. The traders who blow their accounts during drawdowns never collect on their edges. They are gone before the probability resolves. The traders who stay, who protect their capital, who keep the rules in place, who continue executing the process, are the ones the compounding math eventually reaches, not because they were luckier, because they were still there. Ed Sikota put it in terms that have stayed with traders for decades. He said that the elements of good trading do not change, they are always the same: cutting losses, riding winners, managing risk. But knowing those elements and applying them consistently when the market makes it emotionally difficult, that is the whole game. And the whole game is played inside the trader's mind, not on the chart. At $100, you are building the mental habits that the game requires. Every session, you protect your capital. Every trade, you size correctly. Every stop, you honor. Every plan, you follow when the feeling argues against it. None of that shows up dramatically in the account balance on any single day, but it compounds. The habits compound alongside the capital. And the trader who emerges from 6 months of that process, the trader who has built those habits at real stakes, with real consequences on real money, is ready for larger capital in a way that no course, no simulation, and no paper trading can produce. This is what Douglas meant when he said the small account is the most valuable environment in trading. Not because the dollar amounts are comfortable, because the lessons are real and the scale is survivable. You can make every mistake that traders make at any scale, and the account can endure it, if you pay attention. If you build the journal, honor the process, observe yourself, and take the losses as data rather than verdicts. The $100 account teaches everything. The question is only whether you are willing to learn it. Step back from the mechanics for a moment, because there's a truth underneath everything the playbook contains. A principle Mark Douglas returned to throughout his entire body of work, in every lecture, in every chapter, across every conversation about why traders fail and what changes when they stop failing. The traders who eventually build something real in this market are not the ones who figured out how to predict price movement most accurately. They are not the ones who found the best strategy or the best broker or the best platform or the best entry signal. They are the ones who changed their relationship to uncertainty, who stopped needing each trade to confirm their judgment and started treating each trade as one execution in a long series of executions, who built the mental architecture that allows them to take losses cleanly, hold winners patiently, and repeat the process without the emotional interference that derails everything else. That architecture is built trade by trade, not in a single insight, not in a single video, not in a single turning point where everything clicks, in repetitions, in the quiet discipline of following the plan when you do not feel like it, in respecting the stop when every instinct says give it more room, in holding the winner when every fear says take the profit and be safe. Each repetition adds something, not to the account balance, not immediately, to the trader, to the habits, the patterns, the automatic responses that eventually make correct execution feel natural rather than forced. You are building that trader right now, on this account, at this size. Every single trade you take from this point is either installing the pattern that builds accounts or installing the pattern that destroys them. There is no neutral trade. Every execution is a vote for the trader you are becoming. And the only capital that actually matters at this stage is not in your account, it is in your habits. The market does not reward who is right, it rewards who is still in the game. Ask yourself honestly, are you approaching each trade as a test of your judgment or as one execution in a process you trust? Because the answer to that question is not just a philosophy, it is the variable that determines everything you will build from here. If each trade is a test of whether you are right, every loss threatens something beyond the money. If each trade is one execution in a process, every loss is simply the cost of operating an edge that pays over time. One of those relationships with the market builds accounts. The other destroys them regardless of the strategy behind them. Tell me where you're watching from, your city, your country, your part of the world. Drop it in the comments right now. We have traders watching from every continent, from every kind of economic circumstance, working with every size of account. Every new location that appears in the comments is a reminder that this is a global community of people taking the same game seriously. And tell me this, what account size are you working with right now? Is it $100? Is it $200? Is it $500 or somewhere below $50? Whatever it is, wherever you are in this journey, you belong in this conversation. Write it below. Before you go, remember this, the market does not reward who is right, it rewards who is still in the game. If this playbook gave you something you needed, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. The next video goes deeper into the framework we built here today. Share this with one trader you know who is grinding through a small account right now. They need this more than they know. And right here on your screen are 2 more videos that continue this conversation directly. I'll see you there.